Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Real World News TV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Reggie and Kearney. I want to welcome you all to the show tonight. And I got my other co-host. Let me see where she is. Oh, there she is. Good evening, Chara Ann Tappin. How you doing tonight?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Seeing you and Tony always makes me smile, but unfortunately,
Yeah, okay.
the topic we're covering is not something worth smiling over. My stomach is turned. I'm just disgusted. I'm disgusted. This has been a really horrible week, both in terms of the Chauvin trial and the additional murder of Dwayne Duarte. What's his
No,
name?
Dante.
Dante Wright, and
Yeah.
then the fella that was stopped, the military fella that was also stopped and sprayed in his car with no justification. These police officers are wilding out. Welcome, Michael. Welcome back, Jacqueline.
Yeah, I agree. We've got a lot of issues with the police department throughout the nation. Um, Starting off with Windsor, Virginia. That was that was jacked up, and to me, that shows that officer down there has, excuse me, it shows me that the officer in Windsor, Virginia, has probably done this before. He did it so easily and so naturally. I'm pretty sure if you started taking a poll of the citizens of Windsor, Virginia, or in that general area, you probably find out that he's done that to more than one person. Okay, um, and it's crazy. You know, you see, the first problem was the other officer, the young officer. He didn't look hard enough at the vehicle. He looked in the location where the license tag should have been, and it wasn't there, but it was up in the right hand corner of the window. So there was a problem, a conceived problem, which wasn't there. Then to stop him and pull your gun out for what? Okay, I mean, come on now. They just handled it wrong, and then the other guy comes up, then he starts, having words, and then he wants to spray pepper in the guy's face. So it was a situation where both guys should have been fired in December. Okay, and the only reason this came out was because of the lawsuit. Bottom line. So
I'm just, this case, this Derek Chauvin trial, murder trial, let's call it what it is. First of all, this week starts off as, it's like how you have restaurant week in New York City. I don't know if they do that in other states. This seemed like snuff film week. And on every channel, whether they're covering the Derek Chauvin trial or what happened to Mr. Wright, they're showing the videos over and over again. And a part of me wants to say, show it once, show it twice, and then direct people who are watching the news, if they want to see the video, access it online at their website. This constant showing, it's disgusting, and it's turning my stomach. We need to see it and we need to know, but seeing it repeatedly, one part of me is really disgusted, and the other part of me is equally disgusted as I imagine all the racists in the country sitting by with popcorn, playing it on repeat, because that's how they get their shits and giggles. This trial is it's a farce for two reasons. One, we're watching the defense attorney throw everything but the kitchen sink to come up with some bullshit excuse as to why what Derek Chauvin did was acceptable, and basically amounting to why this man deserved to die. And even after the prosecutor's witnesses make professional witnesses who are experts in their field make clear statements about how he died, how much fentanyl was in his system, and whether that contributed or not, he is still pressing this in his line of questioning with other people. I'm like, that's been asked and answered. Move on. And the other reason why I call this a farce is because despite the fact that the entire world is watching, the entire world has seen this video repeatedly, the entire world knows what happened, that we still have to sit and doubt whether or not the justice system is going to work for us. And we have every reason to doubt that, because history has shown us time and time again that our lives don't have value, that we're disposable, and that police officers could get away with basically what amounts to state-sanctioned murder. As long as there's qualified immunity, a separate Bill of Rights for the police investigating themselves, there will, and the ability to keep their jobs or simply move to a new municipality, there will never be a sense of accountability. The whole system just needs to be torn down and started from scratch. It is rotten to the core. And I don't care how many good police officers there may be out there, there are obviously not enough of them to keep the bad actors from acting out. There are not enough of them in positions of leadership to fire these people. There are not enough of them, whether it's the AG or the chief of police or internal investigations, whatever the acronym for that is. It just seems like they're all in on it. And it's really, really disgusting and frustrating that we put up this farce of a trial, given what we've seen throughout history.
Well, I don't think it's a farce of a trial. It's just a justice system at work. I mean, you got to realize the role of the defense attorney is to get that person off. Now, the way he's going about getting it off is it shitty? Yes, it is. Okay, it is. Okay, my thing is, how can any human being get up on the stand and say that there's nothing wrong with what he did as far as the knee and the neck? Okay, that was not aggressive usage of force when it was. So you had a retired police officer making that comment. Okay, what he's trying to do is trying to get plant a seed of doubt in one person, and that's all he needs to do. But the defense had a terrible day today. Okay,
Yeah.
if you go back and look at the trial today, the prosecutor was able to come back at every one of them and get them to a certain extent to retract what they said and agree with the prosecution. So, I like that the defense is not going. The defense is not, getting ahead of the game. Okay, they're getting stopped in every track. So I look for, if it keeps going this way, I will say tomorrow might be the last day for the defense. Definitely Thursday morning. When it's going to be over with. Because it's good that they're showing this video every day in both videos. I know it's sickening to look at, but we need to keep this out in front of the Americans to look at it and view it and see how the state of this country is. Okay, that's just the bottom line of it. People are mad. People are upset. People are ready to burn down cities. They're just freaking disgusted right now. And we've got to do something, with police reform, which we have already done here in Maryland. It's not going over very well. The Republicans are very upset here in the state of Maryland. Baltimore, there's 73 officers that say they're going to retire. But police reform is needed. Okay.
I just don't understand this. You got, supposedly you get into this line of work for the altruistic reasons. You get into this line of work because of the pension. You get into this line of work to protect community and blah, 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 serve your country, serve your county. You don't get into this line of work for qualified immunity. And if you did, you shouldn't have been accepted. You don't get into this line of work because you can kill with impunity. And if you did, obviously you should not be a police officer. Michael Campbell posed an interesting question, and I'd like to address it. He says, do you think Dante would be alive if he had not run from the police? Now, I've only looked at that video a couple of times, and even then sort of like this, because I can't stomach another friggin' snuff film. But I know that he ran back to his car and that there was a scuffle at the driver's seat. I don't know why he ran back to his car. Um, so I cannot define what he did as running from the police. For all I know, he was trying to get something from his vehicle. But that said, nothing nothing in the situation for the reason for stopping him, nor associated with the warrant out for him, justified murder. They know where the man lives. They could have let him drive off and then caught up with him at home, or anything else, or followed the car. They had cars. They had several police officers there. I just, there's this tendency to excel any criminal act done by a person of color to something that warrants a violent reaction. Whether it's your tail light is broken, you're driving with an unregistered car, selling cigarettes in the street, whatever it is, they instantly fear for their life, even when what gave birth to that situation was not a violent act. So I can't honestly answer that question, Michael. I do think that I'm not buying the mistake argument. There were a number of police officers there. Look, when you're being manhandled, I think it's human nature to resist or fight back, especially if you're being pulled in multiple directions by multiple hands. Look at how many people are called resisting when somebody's getting their arm bent back at an unusual angle for cuffs. I don't know what would have happened had he not gone towards his car or fought back. But I do know that the police keep talking about this is what they've been trained to do. And that's sort of a double-edged sword, because what that's telling me is that you've been trained to respond violently to people of color, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of whether or not it's warranted. And that if somebody is contesting your will as a police officer, you have the right and the authority to shoot them, regardless of whether or not what they're doing in that moment is a violent crime or a danger to you. And I have a problem with that. What are your thoughts, Reggie?
Well, one of the things in mentoring we tell young people, young black men, is that go with the flow, okay? Chances are you're going to live if you go with the flow, okay? That's just the bottom line of it, because
George went with the flow. He wasn't fighting back.
but
he was murdered in front of all of us.
But you just have to sometimes submit to the crap that's getting thrown at you in order to survive. I mean, it's all about surviving. Now, they went way beyond the Call of Duty with Dante. Okay, they just went all out. You're right. They could have followed him home. They had his name. They had his address and knew where he lived at. They could have followed. They could have went to his house later on. Like many of the commentators have said, they could have given him a ticket just to show up for court for the, wrote him a ticket, about the bench warrant and say, look, young man, if you don't come to court this time, we are going to have to come by your house and arrest you, okay? There's a lot of different ways they could have handled the case, okay? Even if he started running down the street, resisting arrest, even if he did it, there still was no reason for them to shoot him, okay?
Resisting arrest is not a death warrant.
It was no reason for them to shoot him. I don't care if he jumped up on top of the car. I don't care if he ran away from him or whatever they did. It still didn't warrant him dying. Okay. All right. The thing was, she had enough time to look at her hand and tell that she had a gun in her hand. Okay. All right. And the problem I have too is that you find that all these union presidents or past union presidents, the only thing they're thinking about is keeping their chest poked out and trying to be the big man or the big woman on the block, okay? They have no love, they tough on crime. They have no love for people of color. You see that in New York City with the union there in New York City. You see who they supported for president. So it's no love for people of color by members of the union?
It's beyond no love. Again, they've been indoctrinated to fear us instantly. Their anxiety level, their fear level, that primal response goes from 0 to 100 instantly, regardless of what the situation is and what's called for. Meanwhile, you can have a non-person of color swinging a machete, talking to them with an AK, whatever, in their hands, talking them down, taking them to McDonald's or whatever it is. They have the presence of mind to do that with anybody who's not a person of color. But as soon as they start dealing with a person of color, they lose all. It's one of two things. Either they're so indoctrinated that they are riddled with fear and can't think straight, or they're exceedingly racist and are having an opportunity to act out one of their fetishes and killing
Well,
them.
I think it's both of them. I think it's both of them, but I think it leans more towards racism than anything else. I mean, and I'm going to say it. If somebody get upset because I say it, I don't care. I look at Biden. Correct me if I'm wrong. What has Biden done to lift up black folks since he's been in office? Okay. What has he done? What kind of action has he taken through executive order to uplift us? Okay. Really honest. And people are complaining about it. He's going around the block doing stuff for other people. But what has he done for us? Okay, what's meaningful that he's put in place that's going to help us get ahead of the game? I mean, I'm telling you, I'm about irritated. Okay.
I know that he signed a number of executive orders when he first started to investigate inclusionary practices in federal government, yada yada. But on the ground level, I have not seen anything that he's done to improve our life, liberty, and happiness in this country, or protect us from overreaching police.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do nothing concerning inclusion in the federal government. Here in D.C., we're in D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, where the majority of the population is people of color. Heck, 80% of the federal employees are people of color. Okay, so that doesn't need to be addressed. Okay, the problems that need to be addressed is police reform, things of that nature, things that are going to give us a better quality of life. Okay, he's got to get jail, Justice Department in the running like it needs to be running. Okay, he needs to call the Attorney General in. They need to come up with a game plan to get some of these senior lawyers out into the streets to find out what's going on with these departments. Okay, if you remember when Obama was in office, he had put together a consent decree to for work towards police reform. As soon as Orange Head came in, he got rid of the consent decree.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Those things have got to be put back in place, and people got to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Okay, those are things he can do without having to have a bill passed or anything like that. Again, we are still faced with being second-class citizens in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what kind of job we have or how successful we are. Like they said, like I don't know who said this. Oh, Michael Eric Dyson said with the young man who was in the Army. And when you look at it and you saw what happened, it just shows that some people look at us as just being another nigga. Okay, those are the exact words. You can look at them on Twitter. That's what he said, and so that's how we are viewed. Okay,
yeah.
He said, it was like he was condescending. So, what's your rank? Specialist or private? He said, no, I'm a lieutenant. Nothing rung in your head that you were dealing with somebody who knew what they were doing, asking questions. You had to be so gun-ho. And what if his gun had gone off by accident?
Oh, that's it. It would have been an accident. He feared for his life. Yeah. He was reaching for something in his car. Tinted windows.
It would still been a homicide. Because first of all, they should never got the car with the guns out. All he had to do is walk up to the truck and say, young man, the reason we stopped is because we don't see a license tag. The soldier would have said, look in the right-hand corner of the back.
Well, they didn't look very hard.
They didn't.
Because we can see it.
You look at it on TV, you can see it. You can see it on TV.
Yeah.
So it was just, so a lot of things that play into this. First of all, it was a brand new car. Okay. Down in Windsor, Virginia, he probably lucky he's making $30,000 a year as an officer. Okay. So you have preconceived ideas. You think everybody's a drug dealer or something. How can he afford this? And all that kind of stuff going on. So you want to harass. Now, if it had been a white person, he would have never even done that. They would have walked up very kindly to him, explain what was going on, find out what's going on, say, okay, have a good evening.
100%.
So it just teased me off, the treatment that we get from police officers. And I'm not saying here, they're saying that all police officers are bad, but the bad ones are really making the police departments look pathetic right now.
Yeah, one small hope that I have, and I know that it's unreasonable and unlikely, but one small hope that I have is if this case, this Derek Chauvin case, goes the way it's supposed to, that will start to put a chink in the blue wall of silence and chip away at that. Because that, I think, is one of the biggest impediments to true police reform. Because none of these good police officers feel safe enough to come forward and say anything. They lose their job, or they have to worry about getting support out on the streets, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's not going to happen, Chara Ann. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. The only reason this case is looking like it's going in the right direction is because we saw it played out on TV. Okay, we saw it was played out in real time. Okay, a man died on the streets because of this. So any halfway intelligent human being has to tell the truth. They can't support nothing like this. Okay, the most seasoned police officer can't get up there and give Chauvin any props right now. They can't support him.
They tried. You had that one fella, what was his name? He was a trainer, Barry Broad, 29-year law enforcement veteran and consultant on police practices. He tried. He tried. I give him credit for that. He said he didn't feel as though Chauvin used deadly force, that he didn't think that it was excessive force. But then,
that's on the defense. That's on the defense side. Okay, right now I'm talking on the prosecutor side.
Well, no, the prosecutor was asking him questions.
And
he said he didn't think that he used excessive force, and that it might be considered excessive force if it caused pain. And then he had to admit that kneeling on somebody's back for 9 minutes on hard concrete could be painful and therefore considered excessive force.
When you look at the blue wall, those are individuals that testify for the prosecution. Okay, those people that came forth and spoke as witnesses for the prosecution, they realized that for them not to come forward was like saying it was okay. Because like I said again, we saw this in real time. We saw this happening before our eyes. Okay, the video was too graphic. Okay, so you can't walk away from that and say, he's okay. It was okay for what he did. Now, like I said, yes, the defense is going to try to say it was okay. Okay, prosecution is saying no, it wasn't. So those officers that came forth for the prosecution did an excellent job. You look at the one guy, the oldest police officer on the police force in Minneapolis. He came forth for the prosecution and said, "Look, no, this was just plain out wrong."
Yeah. They have a very good prosecution team there. I will say that they don't let anything go unasked or unanswered. And if something said by a defense witness even smells like it might lead to some ambiguity or doubt, they go back and ask another question. And I applaud them because so many times the defense attorney has been passive. And that's part of the reason why I think some of these other cases didn't go through because they were so passive. And I don't know if they just sucked as an attorney. What?
No, go ahead. No, I was thinking about it. Go ahead, finish your thought.
Like he's smelling something. What are you doing there?
Yeah, no,
Yeah, no. But this group is good,
yeah,
and there's no reason for this man to get off. None
yeah.
so far, based on the testimony I've seen.
Because see, this is how it rolls. Look at what happened to Blake. Okay, he was shot 7 times in the back. Okay, that officer is not going to face any kind of charges. And then that's something that DOJ needs to come to Minneapolis and wherever it was at Minneapolis, I believe, and look at it from a federal point of view and see was this guy's rights violated. You shoot somebody 7 times in the back. You know, God blessed him. He's still living. He's going to have some difficulties, but that officer should have been charged with assault, okay, or attempted murder, okay. Why are you going to shoot somebody in the back 7 times? The guy hadn't even, yes, it was a knife in the car, but the guy hadn't even got the knife. All he knew was a knife in the car. He felt like he was reaching for it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to shoot him 7 times in the back.
In the back, which means he was not facing you and not a threat.
He was not facing. He was getting into his car. Because he was like, I'm finished with this. I'm leaving. Okay, he was getting in the car. He wasn't even reaching for anything. Because he knew if he reached for anything, what was going to happen. But it still happened.
Yeah, no, it's just you can test my will. You're a threat. Therefore, I have a right to shoot and kill you.
Yeah, and
that's
the mentality some of these officers have when it comes to black individuals. Okay, whether it be female or man. Look at Sarah Bland. She gets stopped, puts up a fit, which she had every right to do. Next couple of days, she's dead in her cell. Okay.
But we've seen this on video so many times. We saw it with Philando Castro. We saw it with Eric Gardner. We saw it with Michael Brown. This isn't the first time we've witnessed somebody get murdered on video. It's the first time it lasted 9.5 minutes. But it's not the first time that we've seen this. And the whole, well, you didn't see what happened before or after argument is bullshit to me. Because from the minute that video starts, you see that individual is no longer a threat.
Yeah.
And once they're no longer a threat, no previous actions don't matter. And I agree with Derek. I'm not holding my breath either. I am grateful for the prosecution team, but I cannot hope for justice again and then not get it. Before the show started, I was watching Roland Martin live, and there was a woman. I didn't catch her name, and because it was live, I couldn't rewind it. But Tanisha something started a nonprofit organization out in Minneapolis, I believe, supporting families of victims of police violence. And she said that there were over 420 murders committed by the Minneapolis police, and the only police officer who's ever been held accountable was the black police officer that we saw who shot that, was it Australian tourist? But all the rest of them got off. So I agree with you. The DOJ needs to go down there and do some investigating. Yeah. In addition to that, I read an article that said there are no black police officers or police officers of color down there. And so you've got police in communities, again, that they don't live in, that they have no connection to, no tie to. I thought we were going to try to get away from that.
Well, that happens everywhere. I mean, even in this area, most of the officers in DC live outside the community. I mean, I see officers that live here in this county work in the next county because they bring their cars home. So it's they said on I think I was looking at Readout tonight with Joy, and they had a crawl that said they were talking about this with officers not living in the community and not being beholden to the community and knowing the people they work for. That in, like I say, the 15 largest cities in the country, 60% of the officers live outside the city. So that means in New York City, most of the officers that work in New York City don't even live in New York City. And that's everywhere. So, I mean, it's been a push to try to get them in to live in the city. I know it has been in the DC area to try to get the firemen and the police officers to live in the city, but the unions have blocked that, saying that it should be your choice where to live at. Now,
Yeah, you can live where you want to,
yeah,
but you may be limited on where you work. When
yeah,
you work for the government, when you work for the state, you obviously have to live in the state you work in and represent. And I feel as though, in terms of, especially the police department, maybe not necessarily the fire department, although it probably make their own lives a little bit easier to live closer. But for the police, I think that should be something that should be mandated. They should be of the community, live in the community that they work in, so that there is a greater sense of accountability.
yeah. But it's been tried. I mean, even some cities, and I know in the past, some cities have even given officers rental assistance or financial assistance to help them to either rent an apartment or either buy a home in the neighborhoods, the district that where they work at. So people can see that police car there, 24/7, especially when the officer comes home at night, so they can feel a little safer. So that's something that's really has to be, worked out. It has to be a push to do that. But like I said, the police union, fights against it, and like I said, no telling what's going to happen in the state of Maryland since they've passed, the laws that deal with police reform. That might be part of what they go back and look at next year when they come back next year for the state legislation year. They might look at forcing officers to live in the cities where they work at.
Yeah.
It's only fair.
And to carry on with your point, in New York City, I'm happy to say that the New York City Council ended qualified immunity in New York City. So that means in the 5 boroughs of New York, qualified immunity no longer exists.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only pray that more of the country follows suit.
Yeah,
if you're doing the right thing, if you're following the law and you're following legitimate training, then you really shouldn't have anything to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
Qualified immunity to me it's a get out of jail free card. I don't have to be accountable.
Yeah.
End of story.
But the thing is, Maryland is a very strong blue state. Okay, like 2-1. So things like that was happening in Maryland can really can't be duplicated throughout the country. It's going to be hard because you got so many red states or states even that are blue to have a strong don't have a good majority of Democrats in their on their state body that can get these things done. I mean, everything that happened, the governor tried to veto it, and his vetoes were voted down. So we're in a good spot here in the state of Maryland to get some things done. But and what people got to realize too, and I think people get upset when they hear the word reform and defund it. It's not fire the police department, get rid of them, and rehire everybody again. When you talk about reform, you're talking about working on habits that are no longer needed. Okay. Now, if officers can't deal with the idea of being retrained and being asked to get rid of the old habits that they have, they need to resign. I mean, just the bottom line. Okay. Hey, if you can't deal with it, then okay, time for you to go home. That's what you got to do. Now, Baltimore, if you've been following Baltimore, when the state's attorney for the city of Baltimore decriminalized all these little small petty crimes, violent crime in Baltimore, if I'm not mistaken, has gone down by 19%, almost 20%. When you start doing some, because I mean, if you look at a lot of times, little petty drug sales can lead to murder. Okay, but if you start prosecuting all these guys on a little petty, petty stuff that they do in the community, that can bring about change. Okay.
Oh, most certainly. If the community feels safer,
Yeah.
not just from crime, but also this blue threat that's looming over their heads.
Yeah.
If they feel like they have relationships with their police officers, I mean that can only be good all around. I don't understand the logic.
It's the police union.
arguing against it, because it serves to protect them as well if they have stronger relationships in the community.
These, I'm gonna put it to you this way: some of these white boys have had so much power in their hands for so many years that it's hard for them to let go of the power and just live a normal and come to work to be a normal police officer to serve and protect. Okay.
But you know what, though?
They do that.
They would have even more power if they had the support of the communities they worked in. They would have more power if they could trust their communities and their communities could trust them.
Yeah.
You know, this main fostering and nurturing this polarization. You know, if people don't like the police, it's their own fault.
You remember when I think it was when George Floyd got killed and all the protests were breaking out around the country. Did you notice how receptive and how easy it was for officers that got into the crowd and marched with the crowd and hung out with the crowd? How easy things went. Those cities didn't have any problems.
Yeah.
I can't remember what city it was where the police chief was white and he just started hanging out with the people, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, look at what the police chief in Houston did. Okay. Yeah, he had to get rid of some officers for being knuckleheads during that time. But he went and got into the crowd with the people and hung out with them. That's what policing is all about. It's not about taking your club and beating the crap out of somebody or shooting somebody and trying to kill them. You know, you got to be out in the community doing things in the community, and it warms my heart when I see on television opportunities where officers will go out to the playground and make friends with the kids and play with the kids and stuff. You know, I mean, that's what it's all about. That's community. That's real community policing. You know, are you going to have some problems where you got to go and arrest somebody for doing something stupid? Yeah, those problems are always going to be there. But if you look at what's going on in Baltimore now, you can see if you change the way you handle charging people and policing people, that the crime rate will come down.
Yeah, but they don't want it to. You know, like you said, they like the power. And to them, the power is the fear. To them, the power is don't contest my will. Regardless of what I say is right or wrong, you'll do what I say, boy, and you'll like it. That's what that is. Yeah. Derek, who was on our show for a period of time, posted a comment. He says, the only issue I have is that personnel records should not be accessible to the public unless you make it universal. We have countless former teachers who were convicted of sexual crimes towards minors, yet none of these politicians pushing personal records. Comes down to teacher union endorsements. And I agree in part, but I will say this. Working in human resources, we do background checks on people. We do background checks in every state they've worked and lived in. So while personnel records may not be accessible to the public, if somebody was convicted of a sexual crime, it would come up in the background search and they would not get the job. The only reason that wouldn't come up in the search is if the record was sealed by the court for some reason. Again, if they're not doing anything wrong, there should be nothing wrong. There should be no problem with having their personal records open to the public.
Now, the mayor of what's the name? Brooklyn Center. I think that's the name of the city. He's got to make a decision. You know, he's saying that he hasn't accepted the resignation of the police officer, even though she gave him a resignation. She's no longer with the police force. He needs to fire her. He needs to say, look, I'm not accepting your resignation. I'm going to fire you, okay?
But wait a minute. I saw an article that said that she resigned and he resigned.
Yeah, I'm talking the police chief. I'm saying the mayor.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The mayor, they need to come back with the new acting chief and fire her, okay? And not give her the luxury of being able to, and which she's probably going to get that luxury anyway, of holding on to a pension and being able to go to another police department to re-up again as a police officer, okay?
You know, it boggles the mind is that she was responsible for training people.
Yeah.
So you put somebody in the position of being responsible for training somebody, then that suggests to me that they are the upper echelon of excellence in all that they do.
But she's not.
but clearly she's not. Now, this is the first time she's discharged her weapon or the first time that she's killed somebody. Fine, whatever. But you don't get credit for not doing it before because you've done it now. But the fact is, this was, I guess you could say, a stressful situation. When he went back to the car, I'm going to give them a little bit of rope, just a little bit.
No.
Well, keep in mind, these people fear the black man. Okay, so regardless of whether or not it's justified or not, her thing was heightened. So, but let me finish my point. My point. My point is this: if with all of her 26, 29 years of working in the force, and her training people to deal with quote unquote stressful situations, how is it she failed so remarkably if we're going with the story that this was an accident? That she has no business training people.
Dante, you could have blew your breath at him, he'd roll over. He was a small frame built person.
115 pounds soaking wet. Yeah.
Yeah, what was he gonna do? Okay. You know, it's just he was no quote unquote the big black guy, okay? All right. He definitely wasn't the big black guy, as they always say. They're scared of us because of size and because we're black. You know that didn't hold water. Okay. It like I said again, it was her past that got her in trouble. You know, because she's out training someone. She's trying to be a macho lady. You know, to try to handle the situation. Okay. They could have reached in that car and grabbed Dante and pulled him back out. That's how small Dante was. He was nothing big, okay?
Yeah.
They could have stopped him without doing that. Her thing was, and I blame the police chief on this too. He should have kept his mouth closed, okay?
Who?
All right. He come out jumping out ahead of the game and saying this is an accident, and to me, coming out like that was a cover up, okay? She got 26 years on the police force. She's been in police union. She's my trainer. I got to make it look good for her. Okay. You can't tell me the minute time. Okay, she's a trainer. How many times she's taken her gun out or taking her taser out to compare it and show it to the people she's training? Okay. You can't tell me. You know. Okay, I don't buy it. It was a made up excuse to try to cover up for what she had done.
Well, like I said at the start of the show, my first thought, and I try to be zen, I try to be optimistic, I try to see the light in things, but we're all slowly being indoctrinated through these repeated events. We're being corralled and taught how to dismiss these things or find them highly suspicious, justifiably so. And my first thought when I saw the tape and she's yelling out taser, 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 was also this is their new modus operandi now. So they're going to use the video to create a narrative. So I'm going to say taser, 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 but I know I'm grabbing my gun with my right hand and not my taser with my left, because then that will prove my intent on the video. So God help me if we see the same shit happen again. But yeah, no, it's if it was an accident, I feel moderately bad for her. But I just have a hard time finding that this was the case in light of the history of police shootings in that state.
I'm bigger, God rest Dante's soul, I swear. But I'm bigger than Dante, and I probably could have reached in the car and yanked his little skin and said, right on back out the car and arrested him, okay? Or I would just say, Dante, I'm coming by your house later. I'm be at home. I'm coming by your house and pick you up, okay? There was a lot of ways they could have diffused it. But it was a black man, a young black boy. They got the power, and hey, okay?
I'm sorry, but you said that you said, Derek, you said in your comment that
you can't do things
convicted of sexual crimes. So if they were convicted, how can you not do a background check on that?
Okay. We've had some instances here in Maryland where they caught the teacher, doing sexual acts again, and then it wasn't in his background check, and then they get a call from another school system saying, "Oh yeah, we got him 5-6 years ago for doing the same thing."
Was he convicted? And what
Yeah.
was
Well,
and how
he was
thorough a
fired. He
background
wasn't
check did they
convicted, but he
do?
was fired. He was fired for being involved with underage kids, but they fired him, so he was able to move on to another school.
Yeah,
That should
no,
be to his personnel
that
file.
yeah, that should be public record. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, since there was no court case, and presumably no charges filed by the parents, that's not something that would come up in a background check. And unfortunately, most employers will not confirm the reason for somebody's termination when getting a reference check. They'll just verify dates of employment and title, for fear of getting sued for blocking somebody's future employment. So in that respect, yes.
Yeah, but we gotta do something. I mean, it's crazy out here. Records gotta go. But getting back to the state of affairs in this country, I'm gonna tell you, if they don't convict this guy for killing George Floyd, it's gonna be a long rest of the year.
Well, the one thing that just keeps bouncing around in my head like a buckyball is this constant reiteration of this is how we were trained to do it. This is what we were trained to do. And I can't help but think to myself that on the one hand, we've heard witnesses say, no, you weren't trained to do that. You were trained to stop when somebody is no longer a threat, yada, yada. But on the other hand, if the argument is that that's what they were trained to do, then it speaks very loudly to the fact that we need reform, and we need to look at the way these people are being trained. Who's training them? What are they training them with? And how? What types of circumstances? What types of scenarios? That's what keeps bouncing in my head.
They probably need to come up with some type of national uniform training for police officers, okay? And having the trainers of those police departments go through the same training to sort of like a train-the-trainer type of program, and they can bring it back to the police force and then really start training these people. It's all about retraining, and like I said, it's again about changing the attitudes of a lot of these guys. And if they don't want to reform, they need to leave. I mean, it's just the bottom line of it. Give them a pension, give them a gold watch, and say, look, we glad you stayed as long as you did, but this is how we're going to run things starting today.
Yeah. If you don't believe that reform needs to take place in light of everything that we've seen happen over the last 20 years, you are part of the problem, and you have a vested interest in keeping the system the way it is. But if you genuinely got into the police force for altruistic reasons to support your community, aside from the fact that you want to put food on your table, to protect your community, to serve, to be, that sort of level member of society, then you should have no problem with the reforms that are being discussed and proposed. None whatsoever.
But they have problems with it. They are so stuck on stupid and doing things the way they've been doing them. They just don't want to change. I mean, and you just can't. Every time, and I blame Republicans for this, because the Republicans are the ones that keep the flames going. When we say reform, instead of them saying retrain and reform is good, what they do, they're trying to get rid of the police force and everything. They want to get rid of police officers and everything. Nobody wants to get rid of police officers, because we need to feel safe in our communities. But we want these guys trained and know what to do to keep us safe. And the first thing they need to do is stop escalating situations with black males and females unless they are threatened with a gun. Now, if they're dealing with someone and they pull the gun out on them, that's a whole different story. But if this person is running away from you, or this person hasn't done nothing, or this person is not armed, I mean, you don't make that decision that, I feel threatened, and the guy done ran a mile down the road, you run down the road and kill him. And that happened in another I forgot what city that happened in years ago, but they officers ran the guy down and killed him, shot him in the back. Okay? This BS has got to stop.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't stop, people are going to start being vigilantes, and they're going to start taking justice in their own hands. And I don't want to see it come down to that, okay? Because you're going to end up hurting some good officers that didn't need to be in the fray. Okay, so the councils and commissioners of these cities and counties, the police chiefs and the mayors, they need to sit down and figure this thing out. Okay,
Yeah.
the BS has got to stop. Too many of us are getting killed out here for no reason at all, because they don't want to sit down and reform their police department.
Now, Derek made a comment, and I agree with him in part, and in part I don't agree. He says there is training, however, it is up to the individual officer to do right versus wrong, as well as the good officers to speak up when bad cops are wrong. This isn't political, but rather racial, because it happens on both sides of the aisle. I agree with you about training. I agree with you about good cops standing up and saying something when bad actors are at the table. But I don't agree that there isn't a political aspect to this, because as long as the right can continue to spin the narrative that Black communities are violent communities, that Black people are the biggest offenders and the biggest criminals, they can control those cities. And they can continue to do other underhanded things that they've been doing, like gerrymandering or blocking our ability to vote, or are not investing in communities. I mean, look, yeah, no, there's a total political aspect to this. You know, you don't militarize a police department and give them the ability to buy weapons grade materials if there's not politics behind it. Yeah. So I disagree.
And the Maryland bill also addressed that issue of being militarized. They made a list of what items that they can take from the military, okay? Which I thought was a good idea, because it seems like every little town here in Maryland wants to get one of those little big armor car tanks to ride around in for the SWAT team. Okay, you know, it's crazy. I mean, it is just crazy. But I pray and hope that this stuff will come to an end. It's got to, but this is just April.
Jesus.
We still got to go to December. And I hate to say it, it's going to happen again. It's going to jump. Some officers are going to get trigger happy, and another Black man or woman is going to go down.
Yeah.
You know.
I hate to agree with you.
You
know how I hate to agree with you, but I have to agree with you.
I mean, I was shocked Sunday to hear that this young man had been killed. I mean, I said, here we go. We haven't, and in Minneapolis must be something in the water. Because, I mean, they've had so many police killings in Minneapolis. In the Minneapolis area, it's just unbelievable. You know, it's unbelievable. You know?
So I can pray that we don't have another incident over the next week or so, because I need a psychic break from that.
Yeah, you know, like I tell my son, if you get stopped, just be calm, put your hands on the steering wheel, and follow the orders, and pray.
Yeah, pray for sure.
Know? And don't make no sudden moves. Don't do nothing out of the ordinary. Don't get heated. If they get heated with you, just be calm, be nice. Just like that guy from the Army was doing the other night. Mm-hmm. Remember this show? He just said he was scared. He didn't want to get out the car. I mean, you stand there. Yeah, you are scared. You got two officers got guns pulled on you. You haven't done nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and so, like I said, this, I mean,
he couldn't have had his hands any further out the window than they were.
Yeah,
and they still sprayed him.
And they just were bullying him. That was just the bottom line. They wanted to be in control. No, we're going to have it our way or no way at all. Yeah. And then to tell him at the end, okay, we're going to let you go, but don't bring this up or don't make any more comments about this or whatever. If you do, we're going to bring the charges against you. So that tells me this dude has done more than, this ain't the first time he's done that crap.
Oh, no. They were both fired, though, I think, right?
Just one of them. They need to fire the young boy. I think for it's all over with, for the weekends that he's going to get fired, because the state of Virginia is getting involved in it. You know, everybody is really looking at it and see what they're going to do. And I hope the police chief gets fired, tell the truth. Because he held the tape back. He should have released it in December. But they thought nothing was going to happen, excuse me. and they didn't release it. The lawyer for the driver of the truck released it.
Yeah.
They didn't release it.
Yeah.
So Tony wants us to remind everyone
Mm-hmm.
that HTTR is taking off tomorrow night, but the Truth Brothers the TV will be on Thursday night. The show starts at 7 p.m. Pacific time and 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time.
Don't forget, 9 p.m. Central.
Yeah, so hey, I don't know what we'll be talking about next week. Might be the same old thing.
Oh Jesus, let's hope.
We might have a verdict next week. I doubt it, but I'm pretty sure sometimes next week.
I'll see if our buddy Cheryl has time to join us next week. I know she's had a really busy schedule.
Yeah, I don't know about Cheryl now. I think she might have made a TV switch. She was on MSNBC on Saturday.
Yeah, and then she was on CNN, I think, at 1 o'clock this morning. So she's been really busy.
So she's doing both stations.
Yeah. So Tony, it's we're in the last minute. Do you want to come on board and drop an F-bomb for us?
So, excuse me. You said Cheryl has a new show?
Yeah, she was picked up for a show that she is doing, I believe, on her own. Mm-hmm. So I haven't gotten the complete details of it.
Who picked her up?
I'm not sure. I do remember seeing something on her timeline where she had mentioned it. Yeah, I just haven't had a chance to have a sit-down conversation with her at all.
Tell her to stop forgetting the little guys. She's moving on up the road.
I know, right?
And just leaving us behind.
Post those expensive shoes she's buying.
Okay.
Those expensive meals. Mm-hmm. So she don't have time for us anymore.
So where you going to get your meal at? You going to Taco Bell tonight?
Heck no. I'm going to get some Thai food.
Oh, okay.
You got Thai food. You must be feeling better.
I'm just hungry. I was sitting here, I was listening to you guys popping back and forth on all these websites, trying to figure out what sounded good. And I just decided on Thai. It was easy.
All right, then enjoy.
I don't eat much of it because,
So what are the Truth Brothers covering tomorrow or Thursday?
You know what? I'm going to leave that to them as a surprise. I didn't want to, I know, right? I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag, but of course.
Clue, a hint, a breadcrumb?
I can't even sprinkle a breadcrumb.
Do they have a guest?
Huh?
Is there a special guest?
No.
Okay.
But it's always a good show.
Look,
always a good show.
Just one more thing about situation.
I'm hungry, right?
Yeah, I know, but look, let me say this. I wish we stopped looting when we go out and do our business. They were tearing that dollar store up last night. I swear, I just said, Lord,
You said looting?
Yeah.
Somebody made a very good comment online the other day, and I agree with it. I just don't know how plausible it is. But they said if the case doesn't go the way it should, the entirety of the diaspora of people of color in the United States should spend the next year or two buying only Black products or products from people of color to hit the economy that way so hard. It would put the loss of revenue during the bus boycott in the wind. But it's a really difficult thing to do.
It's a great idea to do that. But we're not going to do anything but bitch, moan, and complain as we always do. Mm-hmm. I went online last night and I was furious, and I had to let it out somehow. So I went online last night. But the problem with us is that we can't seem to form any semblance of unity because we're so worried about ourselves. Yeah. We're in a me factor. And it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate because as we stay in that me factor, nothing will get done. Nothing. And as long as you got social media the way we do, people will bitch, moan, and complain on social media, but won't raise a finger to get out there in front of their, city officials or to some of these meetings and make a change. So I'm not sure how we're going to do it. It would be a beautiful thing that we could boycott on the lines of the bus boycotts, something like that, or even, holding back our dollars and spend only in areas of Black-owned businesses. But as long as there's a Walmart that's offering everything from A to Z under the sun, people are going to go to Walmart. People are not going to commit the way that we would like for them to commit. And the thing is that I saw a post, and I'm going to leave this alone, and I'm going to let Reggie have the last word, because I'm hungry. So I saw this post, right? And it made a whole lot of sense to me. And it says, and I can't say it word for word, but what it amounted to was that we will spend money on designer items, right? Knowing it costs money, all right, for a label.
Yeah.
But as soon as we go to a Black-owned business, to their website or go through their storefront, we say, oh, these Negroes are overcharging. We ain't going to pay for that. But you just paid $400, $600 for a pair of pants.
Well, yeah, because we become,
for a designer bag.
because there's no street credit for buying something that's not designer or whatever you want to call it. I remember in junior high school, my father wouldn't let me wear Calvin jeans because he didn't want me walking around with somebody else's name on my ass.
On your butt.
And I was like, just one pair, please, and I grew up. Eventually, I got to a point where I didn't really care. I mean, I might have a couple of choice items, but for the most part, if it looks good, I buy it. I don't care. But I'm not going to go out and like Louis Vuitton, tacky. Sorry, never liked it. I'm not going to go out and fall for that.
Yeah.
But that's the problem.
And when it comes to boycotting, we can't boycott like we did back in the civil rights movement. We got to do targeted boycotting, okay? If it means boycotting Walmart and go to Target every day, then that's what we got to do. We got to pick companies and make them feel miserable and make them come out and say, some guys, we getting beat up over here. Y'all got to come help us, okay? Help us get through this. So we got to do a lot more targeted. And far as Black companies are concerned, yes, we've got to support each other, but we've got to do better at running our businesses if we want people to support us, okay? And we got to make sure our products are quality products. We just got to do it all the right way. And everything.
Right.
So
now, can I go eat?
No.
Okay.
Look at she hungry. You can see across her forehead. She got written, "I'm hungry."
Let her go before she gets hangry. Okay?
Yeah.
I know, because I'm ready to chew on this table.
Yeah, please don't do that. Go get you something to eat.
I'm gonna go cuddle with my puppy.
But great show. I enjoyed it as always. For those who are watching and listening in, come on back every Tuesday. Show always begins at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 Central, and 8:30 on the East Coast. Again, as a reminder, HTTR TV with me and Yvonne Baker will not be airing tomorrow night. She's basically taking care of her daughter. Her daughter had surgery. So, I'm not going to do it by myself. So we'll come back the following week. Just make sure that you tune in on Thursday night to Truth Brothers TV with Ray Gage and Devon Patrick. Their show starts at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 9 Central, 10 o'clock on the East Coast. With that being said, I am going to pick up my food. I'm hungry. I'm out of here. I gave you my F-bomb. I'm done.
It was a watered down F-bomb, but I'll take it. Good night.
Okay.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.